Hey everyone, welcome to week 6. We finally got a baby, so today we're going to start talking about the baby. This lecture is going to cover infant feeding and nutrition, baby brains, motor development, and abuse and neglect. I'm just going to start off by talking to you about infant feeding and nutrition today, and then you can follow the rest of the lecture to look at baby brains, motor development, and abuse and neglect. So, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that breastfeeding is best, and they suggest that breastfeeding promotes bonding by releasing oxytocin. And they also tell us that we find cultural differences in breastfeeding. So some cultures recommend breastfeeding over others. Here in the US, there is a big movement pushing towards breastfeeding. However, there's also a big movement pushing folks who choose to breastfeed to do so in private. So breastfeeding in public has become a very large debate recently. There are a lot of benefits to breastfeeding. For the baby, we see better immune functioning and a lower risk of SIDS. I see a typo here. They are less likely to be obese in childhood or suffer from asthma and diabetes in childhood. And for the mother, breastfeeding is likely to lead to a quicker recovery from birth, allows women to be more likely to lose their pregnancy weight, and women who breastfeed report feeling more confident and less anxious. And later in life, it lowers the risk of osteoporosis and breast and ovarian cancers. And that is some pretty recent research that has been found that's kind of exciting in the world of getting mothers to breastfeed. So if breastfeeding is so great, then why would some women choose not to breastfeed? Well, there's a few reasons why bottle might make sense. So the first one is low supply. Although our bodies should be ready to breastfeed and should produce enough milk for everybody, we find that that's not the case at all times. And sometimes women, no matter how hard they try, are not producing enough milk to be able to feed their baby. And in cases like that, they have to supplement with a bottle. Sometimes when supplementing with a bottle, the baby prefers the bottle because it's easier to get the milk from the bottle than it is from the breast. And in cases like that, babies may self-wean from the breast and choose to only use the bottle. Some women need to take medications that they had to go off during pregnancy, but it's really important for them to go back on after they give birth. For instance, I have a friend who has severe rheumatoid arthritis. She went off of her medication during pregnancy because she wanted to deliver a happy, healthy baby. But after pregnancy, her arthritis was so bad that she became unable to use her hands. So if she did not take her medication, she would not be able to pick her baby up. And therefore would not be able to breastfeed her baby because she couldn't pick him up or bottle feed her baby. So in her case, it made more sense to go on her medication. Similarly, women with MS, they often see a remission during pregnancy, but after giving birth can have a very rough relapse. And in cases like that, they are generally recommended that they start on steroid medication. And in those cases, they're unable to breastfeed. Also, let's think about illicit drugs. Well, of course, we don't want mothers doing illicit drugs. We should recognize that sometimes it happens. And in cases like that, I would suggest that we would counsel a mother to bottle feed over breastfeed. If she's going to be doing the illicit drugs, we'd much rather see that it was not passed on to the baby. And then finally, infectious disease. One common example, not common example that it's happening, but one example to think about is HIV/AIDS. So we now have medications that women can take during pregnancy to ensure that they don't pass on, well, to do their best not to pass on HIV/AIDS to their child. It has something like a 96% success rate, which is pretty high. However, it can still be transmitted through breast milk. And so women who have these infectious diseases and still choose to have children may choose to bottle feed so as not to pass on the infectious disease after birth. So there are different recommendations on when to start feeding the baby other food. These recommendations differ depending on doctors. The differences in age are recommended. Sometimes doctors suggest 4 months, sometimes they suggest 6 months. A difference in schedule of food. Sometimes they suggest you start with vegetables and then move to apple or to fruits. Sometimes they say just start giving them whatever you're eating. And then there's also this idea called baby-led weaning, and that is that you don't puree food for your infant to feed them baby food like we're familiar with. You just start giving them food as if you would be eating it, and let them make the decision if they're going to start eating it or not, while still providing them with breast milk or formula. There's a saying that a lot of parents use, food before 1 is just for fun. And that's because children are still getting all of the nutrition that they need from milk and from breast milk and formula. But after 12 months is when we start seeing them needing to get nutrition from other foods. And at about 12 months is when they start recommending cow's milk to drink rather than breast milk or formula. Some women do breastfeed longer than 12 months, but typically they don't suggest you go with formula for longer than 12 months. Now, children do get exposed to cow's milk before 12 months through cheese and sometimes yogurt and so forth, but for drinking milk, they say that you should wait until about 12 months. So I'm going to leave the lecture off here. This is where you get to start thinking about baby brains. I hope you have a great week and enjoy this module.